Good morning. I read a verse during December that I've read before, but I noticed a little phrase this time that I've never noticed before, and I'm going to share that verse with you today and what I learned from it. Micah chapter 5, verse 2. But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from old, from everlasting. This verse is talking about the city of Bethlehem, where Jesus was born. And I want you to notice what the prophet Micah said about Bethlehem. Notice the words, though thou be little. Micah was saying that Bethlehem was little. Little isn't only talking about small in size, although that can be true, but little can also mean of little importance or little dignity or little power. Have you ever felt little? And I'm not talking about size here. I'm talking about little as in importance. Maybe you feel what you do is not important. It's insignificant. You wonder if anything you do is making any kind of difference to those around you. Maybe you're a Sunday school teacher, but you only have a couple people in your class. Maybe you're only the janitor at church. Maybe all you do is take attendance or put offering envelopes in the chairs. Maybe you are very involved in the ministry, but it's a very small ministry. You're not well known. No other pastors or churches know you. Okay, well, if so, you are in good company. Micah said the same thing about Bethlehem, but that's not all he said about it. He didn't stop after he said, Bethlehem, you are little. Okay, he kept going. He followed that phrase with a wonderful little conjunction, and that conjunction is yet. That word yet tells us that although Bethlehem was little, there was something else that the prophet had to say about it. And what he had to say should encourage you today as it did me. This is what he said. After he said Bethlehem was little, he said, yet out of thee shall he come forth. Who's that talking about? Jesus. Even though Bethlehem was little, what most people would consider a small, insignificant little place compared to the other cities, God chose that little city to be the birthplace of his own precious son, Jesus. Little, but so important. I've felt little before, insignificant, unimportant. I will admit there are times I wonder if I've made a difference at all. I have wondered if my little Sunday school class or our small church or the class I teach at school is of any importance. There have been days when I think it wouldn't matter if I did it or not, but that is not true. Let me share with you something this verse taught me. God doesn't see you the way others see you or the way you see yourself. He sees you the way he saw Bethlehem, that special place of all the cities in the whole world that he chose to be the birthplace of Jesus. Little, but important. Don't ever think that just because your job, your church, or school, or your family, or whatever you do is little, that it is not important. My dad used to say this saying, don't ever be too big to do something little for God. That little thing that I do for God could change the world. That little boy in my class at school could be the next great evangelist, or a missionary, or a preacher. My Sunday school class could have a lady in it that is going to reach someone that will be a great preacher or become the wife of a great evangelist. Yes, my church, my job, my school may be little, but out of it could come something or someone great. Do you know the name Edward Kimball? Have you ever heard of him? How about D.L. Moody? I'm sure the majority of you have heard of D.L. Moody. But did you know that Edward Kimball was the man who influenced D.L. Moody to be saved? Most Christians have heard of D.L. Moody, but very few would know who Edward Kimball was. But without Edward Kimball, there would be no D.L. Moody. Little, but very important. Have you heard of Charles Spurgeon? If you've been in church for a while, you have heard that name. He was a great preacher from many years ago. But I'm sure you've never heard of the man who led him to Christ. In fact, Spurgeon doesn't even mention any name when he wrote about his salvation experience. Spurgeon may not have even known his name. He had stopped into a little church during a snowstorm. The weather was so bad that the preacher wasn't even there, and one of the men in the church got up and preached about looking to Christ, and Spurgeon was saved that day. No one, I believe, even knows that man's name, but we know Spurgeon. Yet without that man's willingness to get up, seemingly do something very little, and preach during a snowstorm, even when it wasn't his job, and even when the pastor didn't show up, and when there was hardly anyone there in the service, he did what was right. He did that little thing, and because he got up and preached, if he wouldn't have done that, countless souls may never have come to Christ through Spurgeon's preaching and his ministries. Little, but very important. So what should you do when you feel little? When you feel unimportant or insignificant? Does it really matter, you think? Keep teaching, keep working, keep encouraging. You never know who you are influencing. Charles Chestnut, who was an American author, political activist, and a lawyer, said, "We sometimes underestimate the influence of little things." And it's true. Everyone underestimated Bethlehem. It was little, small, seemingly insignificant, and yet who came out of Bethlehem changed the world. I will close with a song that we all know, and yeah, we probably really don't stop and pay attention to the words too much. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing it. I'm going to just tell you the words. Okay, here it goes. Little is much when God is in it. Labor not for wealth or fame. There's a crown, and you can win it if you'll go in Jesus' name. And this is my favorite verse of that song. Does the place you're called to labor seem so small and little known, like Bethlehem? It is great if God is in it, for he will not forsake his own. Little is much when God is in it. And no matter how small your work seems, remember the promise in Hebrews 6:10. For God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love. Maybe you're just a stay-at-home mom right now and you just have a little one at home and you think, what am I doing? Why is this important? You never know who you're influencing. Keep teaching them about Jesus. God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love. My motto is this: no matter how small, give it your all. Luke 16:10 says, he that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. Don't be too big to do something little for God.